Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Amish Shankar Singh, Associate Consultant Neurology in Fortis Hospital, Mohali. My topic of talk today is current approaches to multifocal motor neuropathy. It's a rare disease, and just change this. How can I change the slides? Yes, yeah, next. Talking to the introductory part, multifocal neuropathy is an acquired immune-mediated neuropathy, which is characterized by chronic or stepwise progressive asymmetric weakness without sensory deficits. And it is disorder, upper extremities are mostly affected, but lower extremities can also be affected. And it is a distal neuropathy. And it can be classified in the broad rubric chronic acquired myasthenia neuropathy. Next slide. So now coming to the epidemiology of multifocal motor neuropathy with conduction block. This is a rare disease and with a prevalence of 1 to 2 per lakh. More common in males with a male to female ratio of 3:1. And in 80%, almost 80% of the cases are between 20 to 50 years of age. And so it is quite rare in children, and onset is also rare in elderly. Has no ethnic or geographical distinction, and there are few reports that, like Guillain-Barré syndrome, it is associated with Campylobacter jejuni infection or after the therapy of TNF alpha. Next, please. So, before coming to this disorder, I wanted to tell about the historical aspect of MNS-CV. First, the name, the multifocal motor neuropathy with conduction block. So multifocal means the multiple nerves are involved, and focal involvement is there. Motor neuropathy because it has involvement of motor nerves only. Conduction block is an electrophysiological feature which is present in the nerve conduction study. So it was first identified by Perry et al. In 1988, and they have found in 5 patients such type of presentation. And similarly, at the same time, Roth et al. Has also found the same findings. And in 1988, Pestronk has given this name multifocal motor neuropathy. So some doctors or scientists use only MMNN. Some use MNN-CB because conduction block is an associated finding which is present, but not in all the patients. So MMN is a more used term in this disorder. And they have also found this association with anti-GM1 IgM antibodies. So this was all 30 years back. Next slide. So now coming to the clinical features of this disorder. So multifocal motor neuropathy is characterized by slowly progressive or stepwise progressive, asymmetric or distally prominent paresis related to distinct peripheral motor nerves. So this disorder mainly involves the distal nerves, that too only motor, and asymmetric. So patient can have involvement of median or ulnar or peroneal or tibial nerve, and that too motor component only. And on one side, it starts on one side, and stepwise progression is there. But in 5 to 10% cases, proximal muscles can also be seen. Upper limbs are characteristically more affected and have more severe problems rather than lower limbs, but lower limbs can also be affected. And the most common symptom in this disorder is wrist drop or impaired hand grip or even foot drop and difficulty in holding slippers. So it's a distal disease, distal nerve disease. Next slide. Along with these symptoms, patient can have fasciculation, muscle cramps, and can have even polymini myotonus because of the involvement of the distal muscles. And patient can have muscle atrophy, that is mild in early stage also. And tendon reflexes are of these paretic muscles are usually reduced, but they may be normal or even rarely brisk also. Cranial nerve involvement is very uncommon, and if present, 12th nerve is commonly involved. Next slide. So to summarize physical examination in patient of MNCB, if we see a patient, so many of you have seen this rare disease, but if we have to examine the physical examination, mostly no findings are there, but cranial nerve, rarely 12th nerve can be involved. So muscle strength, if we examine, we can find asymmetric hand muscle weakness with rare involvement of respiratory muscles. Muscle atrophy is present. Deep tendon reflexes are generally absent. Human signs are absent. Muscle tone is decreased. And on sensory examination, patient can have vibration, only vibration. So it's a motor neuropathy, but vibration sense involvement can be seen in 20% cases. Otherwise, it's an excluding factor. Sensory, objective sensory findings are the excluding factor of this disease, except the vibration sense. And patient can have fasciculation cramps and polymini myoclonus. Next slide. So as I have told, sensory symptoms, so it is important. So according to the European Federation of Neurological Sciences, the guideline says if there is any sensory objective abnormality, then we have to exclude this disorder. In this disorder, generally sensory findings are not there, but minor vibration sense abnormalities can be seen in 20% of the patients. So this is important because it can distinguish many disorders. Next slide. So now, after the symptomology, the pathophysiology of this disease. So multifocal neuropathy is an immune-mediated disease with high titers of anti-GM antibodies, and that can be found in 20 to 80% patients. So GM1 is a ganglioside which is present in axon or myelin sheath, and they are only present near the node of Ranvier. So there are in axons there are myelin sheath, and in between there are nodes of Ranvier. So this ganglioside is especially present in this node of Ranvier, and this ganglioside is seen in both sensory and motor nerve, but there is difference. These antibodies are specifically formed against the motor nerve's ganglioside. That's why this distinction of motor, specifically motor neuropathy in this disease. And so this antibodies, because of this antibodies, immunomodulatory treatment is also present because it is an immune-mediated disorder. Next slide, please. So as I have told, node of Ranvier or paranodal region are affected predominantly. So this is node of Ranvier, and because of antibody-mediated attack, the region around this is affected. We can see the axons with the node of Ranvier, and paranodal demyelination is seen, and this leads to exactly the conduction block without segmental demyelination in this disorder. Next slide, please. So as I told that GM1 ganglioside is appended around this node, and antibodies against this ganglioside leads to this conduction block and damage in this disorder. Next, please. So we know now the pathophysiology. So how to distinguish with other disease, how we have to go for further workup in this disorder. So there are laboratory investigations. So routine laboratory parameters are normal. CSF study is done so as to rule out other diseases. And in this disease, rarely protein concentration is more than 80 milligram per dl. So proteins and cells are normal. Serum electrophoresis has to done to rule out monoclonal IgM gammopathies, which is also absent in this disorder. But there can be slight elevation of CPK total muscle creatinine kinase in 2/3 of the patient. Next slide, please. But the characteristic is again anti-GM1 antibodies, which can be seen in 30 to 80% of the cases. And there are other antibodies against the axon and myelin component, which are infrequently found. So this has to be done. So this is important because this can be seen in other disorders also, but this is very specific for this MMNCB. Next slide, please. Imaging studies are also sometimes conducted, but not routinely. It is to be done when there is confusion in the diagnosis. And MRI of the brachial plexus with contrast is preferred, and we can see asymmetrical hyperintense signal in the T2 or contrast images in the brachial plexus roots or trunks. And there is thickening of nerve roots or maybe proximal nerves of the arm also in this disease. Next, please. So the mainstay for the diagnosis and the, as you see in the name also, conduction block, it can be diagnosed with nerve conduction study. So the characteristic feature of this disease is multifocal conduction block. Along with this, there may be other signs of demyelination, including decreased velocities, prolonged terminal latencies, terminal dispersion, temporal dispersion, and delayed or absent F waves. But the sensory nerve findings are always normal. And in later stages and in some incidences, axonal degeneration is also found in this disorder, where the treatment is not very effective. Next slide, please. So what is conduction block? So if we go for nerve conduction in a nerve, like in a median nerve, and there is distal stimulation, there is a CMAP formation with a specific amplitude and area. And when the proximal stimulation is done in normal nerves, another CMAP will be formed. It has comparatively equal or sort of amplitude and area. But in MM and CB, because of the degeneration of the nodal area and demyelination, distal stimulation will form a CMAP with a specific amplitude, but the proximal stimulation will not form the similar CMAP but it has a reduced area and reduced amplitude. So this is conduction block. Next slide, please. So in motor conduction study of median nerve, we can see as we go proximally, the CMAP amplitude start decreasing in MM and CB, and the area under the curve is also decreasing in motor nerve. But we can see in sensory, the amplitudes or area are almost same. So that's why it is a motor conduction block in median nerve in this setting. Next slide, please. So this conduction block can be judged by amplitudes and the area, and around 20 to 50% reduction is seen in most of the cases. But this conduction block is not essential for the diagnosis. If there are typical clinical presentation and good response to IVIG without conduction block, then also this disease need to be, this should be characterized as MMN. Next slide, please. So there are EFNS guidelines for this electrophysiological criteria for definite conduction block. So in upper limbs, it has to, the amplitude has to be reduced more than 50, and the area reduction should be more than 40%. But in lower limb, the amplitude should reduce more than 60%, and the area should reduce more than 50%. So this is the definitive electrophysiological criteria, and it should be next slide, please. So along with nerve conduction studies, sometimes nerve biopsy is done, but as we go for the nerve biopsy is generally done in sural nerve, which is a sensory nerve, so it's not helpful. So but it can be done to rule out other disorders. And in motor, if the nerve biopsy of the motor nerves done, and that too in the affected area, sometimes we can found thinly myelinated axon and the formation of onion bursts at the site. Otherwise, nerve biopsy is generally not recommended. Next slide, please. So the diagnostic criteria of multifocal motor neuropathy according to FNS is essential criteria and the supportive criteria. So the essential criteria, as I have mentioned all the findings, but we have to see all the essential criteria and supportive criteria once again. So slowly progressive or stepwise progressive asymmetric weakness related to at least two distinct peripheral nerves for more than 1 month, but usually more than 6 months. This is the first criteria. And no objective sensory deficit except minor vibration sense abnormalities. Definite conduction block according to the electrophysiological criteria of two or more peripheral nerves, and normal nerve conduction study of the sensory nerves, and any absence of any upper motor signs. So this is the essential criteria. And to support this criteria, there are supportive criteria. Predominant upper limb involvement at onset, along with decrease of absent tendon reflexes in the affected limb, absence of cranial nerve involvement, cramps and fasciculation in the affected limbs, elevated IgM ganglioside GM1 antibodies, MRI showing gadolinium enhancement or hypertrophy of brachial plexus, and clinical improvement following IVIG treatment. So this is supporting criteria. Next slide, please. Along with this criteria, there is a exclusion criteria also. So if these symptoms or findings are present, then the MMN is not there. So this exclude this diagnosis, and the exclusion criteria include upper motor neuron signs, any marked verbal involvement, significant sensory impairment, diffuse or symmetric pattern of paresis at the beginning of the disease, and CSF protein of more than 1 gram per liter. Next slide, please. So now coming to there are some differentials or mimics of this motor multifocal motor neuropathy with conduction block. And the common are amylotropic lateral sclerosis, lower motor neuron diseases like PLA, progressive muscular atrophy, chronic inflammatory demyelinating CIDP, or Matsam or Lewis-Sumner syndrome. So if we want to differentiate it with amylotropic later ALS, then there are some differentiating points. Like in ALS, there is increased tendon reflexes in the weakened muscle. So UMN signs are present, and it's a rapidly progressive disorder. So it can be differentiated by that. And in nerve conduction study, we don't find this conduction block. Lower motor neuron disease are difficult to differentiate, but obviously there are some differences, rapidly progressive nature, and almost every time there is decreased reflexes in the weakened muscles, and there will be no conduction block. So this can be a differentiating factor. In CIDP, it's a symmetric disease with predominant sensory symptoms, with generalized hyporeflexia and a relapsing nature. And CSF proteins are also high. So these are the differentiating points. And Lewis-Sumner syndrome has sensory symptoms and not that specific conduction block. So by this way, we can differentiate this disease from other differentials. Next slide, please. So after differentiating it and confirming the diagnosis, now coming to the treatment. So the best treatment is IVIG. It is most infectious, and it is highly effective in 70 to 90% patients, but require periodic treatment over several years. And it is said that with the IVIG treatment, muscle strength improves. Along with that, the conduction blocks also improve. But there is no effect on anti-GM1 antibodies. But there are some cases where the long-standing disease is there and axonal degeneration is there. There is poor response with IVIG. Next slide. IVIG is to be given intravenously, but there are some recent studies which say that subcutaneous route can be also used, and it has to be given in doses of 2 gram per kg body weight over 2 to 5 consecutive days. And the maintenance dose is said that it can be given at monthly intervals of 1 to 2 gram per kg body weight, but it's not feasible in our setup, and especially because of the cost restraint. So one of my patients is getting it every 3 monthly. So he is happy with that also. So we have to see all that also. So sometimes IVIG efficacy decreases, then we have to decrease the duration of the doses and may increase the doses also. Next slide, please. So there are other treatment options. Rituximab. there are less data about that and small studies only, and it is said that it is effective in around 20% of cases, and the infusion need to be repeated every 10 weeks. Next slide, please. So other immunomodulators like azathioprine, mycophenolate mofetil, and cyclophosphamide are tried, but the reports are rare and the benefit is not that much, and large studies are required. Next slide, please. So to conclude my talk, we have talked about all the clinical findings, the history, epidemiology, the pathophysiology. So multifocal motor neuropathy is a rare but treatable neuropathy. So this is one thing, and it has to be diagnosed and differentiated with ALS and other variants where the treatment is not possible. It has distinct clinical features and recognition is quite important. And the conduction block are seen in majority of the patients. So conduction block is quite specific for this disease, and IVIG is the mainstay of the treatment, which is very effective in this disorder. Thank you. Next, please. Thanks. Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. Thank you, everyone.